Hey, Curtis,
Hey Oz.
what movie do you have for us this week?
This week we're watching Almost Famous meets Gross Point Blank plus TurboTax crossed with American Kickboxer. This week's movie is Say Anything.
I think that's our first Michael Dudikoff reference.
Yes, first and certainly not the last.
Wait, no, yeah, it will be the last for sure.
Yeah, if there's one
Oh,
actor that we need to constantly reference, it's Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah, he comes from the Casper Van Dien School of Acting.
Yeah, just a concrete block.
Right. It's like,
Concrete block with eyebrows.
Yeah, with a clutch cargo mouth going.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, the podcast where we take a monthly theme and satisfy it with a movie of our choice. I'm one of your hosts, Oz.
And I am the other host, Curtis.
And we are back this week. It's your week. It's the second week of Wives' Choice Part 2. And like you said, we've got 1989 Say Anything.
Yes, we do.
John Cusack, Ione Skye. Where does the TurboTax come in?
The TurboTax comes in with the tax fraud.
Oh, that's right. Okay, gotcha.
From Jim's character, yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned TurboTax, I'm rolling through, like, have I seen a TurboTax commercial with one of these people as the spokesman? Like, that's what I was going for. Because I could totally see Lily Taylor as, like, a TurboTax spokeswoman or something like that. But only if she does it as Corey.
as Corey. Or she's singing about Joe.
Yeah. She just replaces it with taxes, and it all still causes the same amount of pain.
Taxes.
Taxes are a liar.
I'll never get together again with taxes.
Oh, before we get too far, we do want to give a shout out to our Patreon subscribers, Don S., Melissa L., Aaron A., and Mandy K. Thank you once again for your patronage. You can always find a link down below if you would like to hear your name shouted out each week, because we love our patrons and we love their money.
So not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, I cashed it out in a bunch of gold coins so that I could Scrooge McDuck it down in my basement.
Yeah. You probably got a pretty hard landing still at this point.
It is. I've always wondered, how does one swim in coin like that?
I'm just impressed how he spits it out. And it's like a stream of coin that just comes out of his mouth.
Why is he swimming in coin with his mouth open? But well.
It's like, those pennies are pretty dirty. Like, how many people have touched those?
Right. All right. So, Say Anything. I love the movie Marriage, by the way. Like,
thank you.
Got your Cameron Crowe. Got your and really probably the perfect John Cusack reference, because he's just as like spastic and Gross Point Blank.
Well, and like the martial arts and everything in Gross Point Blank, and so I started. I was proud of myself. I started with American Kickboxer and worked backwards. So it's not often.
Nice.
It's not often that I start with the punchline, but I was very proud of myself for this one.
Yeah, you got our future Richard Pryor in our hands here.
Yep, I gotta set myself on fire while freebasing cocaine.
Never mind. I thought you'd done that already. So
well, that explains a lot.
Like
about
you said,
me.
you start at the end and work backwards.
Yeah.
So. I know you've been in a Jackie Gleason movie, so
yes. me and Jay go way back.
Jay
Gleason.
All right. Well, it is being your week. It is your plot. So I'm going to unveil our cast of characters.
Yes.
Which, like a lot of weeks, and I think this is probably true of a lot of Cameron Crowe films, there's a lot, but very little. Like,
yes.
I could easily name off everyone here, but it's not necessary. So I'm gonna hit the ones that probably matter. Of course, we have John Cusack as Lloyd Dobler, as we mentioned last week, the creator of the Dobler radar effect.
Yes, the Dobler effect, like when the train goes by.
Yeah, meteorologists use it all the time. So John Cusack is Lloyd Dobler, future kickboxing dojo owner extraordinaire. An owner of a trench coat. One thing I've never owned.
Yes. Got the tan trench coat.
And so Lloyd is your other side of the tracks guy. He's the Romeo of this Romeo and Juliet romance. And his Juliet is played by Ione Skye, who is Diane Court. The aforementioned, I guess she'd be your stereotypical, everybody knows her, but nobody knows her. She's the valedictorian and is just kind of there.
Yeah. Your student council president, your kid who's plugged into everything academically.
Yep.
Probably has gone to like a private SAT tutor kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, they're the kid that's involved in everything in school except social circles.
Yes.
Her father, James Court, played by John Mahoney, is a assisted living. I couldn't tell if is he the owner of the assisted living?
I think
place?
He's got to be the owner. I think he's like the owner in day-to-day operations and all that.
Right. And so those are kind of our opposite sides here. You've got John and John, Cusack and Mahoney, basically fighting over Ione Skye. So in John's corner is his cut man, Corey Flood, played by Lily Taylor, as well as Amy Brooks playing DC, and occasionally Rebecca, played by Pamela Adlon. Then that's really about it. You've got a Jeremy Piven, who's just Jeremy pivoting himself around the screen.
Yes, he is. There's an Eric Stoltz sighting.
There's an Eric Stoltz. You've got a Baby Newworth playing Mrs. Evans. She is the principal in the faculty. That's where I saw her. I saw her coming in here. I'm like, wait a minute, she's in the faculty. And really, that's about it.
Yeah.
We can't forget John's older sister, Joan Cusack.
Yeah.
Playing his older sister in this movie.
Yeah.
I think she's uncredited in this movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's uncredited. But always great.
Despite having a very substantial role in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but that's it. We've got a bunch of others. We've got a Howard. We have a Ruth. We have a principal. We have a parent. Like that's the cast. Is like they're not name worthy except for Joe. We should probably mention we should probably mention Joe. Not that he's important, but just to Corey, he's the world. So
no, he's not.
And so that's your cast. And so it's your turn to unveil the plot of this Cameron Crowe 100-page filled with commentary.
Yes. So as we mentioned towards the end of last week, there's a lot of talking in this movie.
Yeah. So
I'm going to do my best to hit the high parts, as well as just sprinkling in like some of those little details that'll pop up later. As I referenced during, what was it? Of course, now I blank on this, but the movie that I referenced her in before. It was Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. My stepmother Deb would not care for a movie like this because too much talking.
Too much talking,
not enough kickboxing.
Which is odd because if you've ever sat down with Deb for any amount of time, you could argue that Deb, there's too much talking going on here.
Well, I mean, she loves a good conversation, but when she's watching the tube,
right?
You better be holding a long rifle and wearing a trench coat.
Because I really appreciate and love Deb, but
as do I.
But it is odd that it's like I don't like. Let me spend 20 minutes telling you about why I don't like talking in movies.
Yeah. She pulls up a PowerPoint to demonstrate as well. Yeah.
Okay, Deb. It's probably because all their conversation gets in the way of your conversation.
Yes. Oh, we love you, Deb.
Oh, we do, Deb.
Yes, we do. All right, so we open Say Anything on Lloyd talking with Corey and DC, his two best friends, and he says, "I'm going to take out Diane Court." I love Lloyd.
Right to it.
Yeah, I love Lloyd's confidence too.
Oh, absolutely.
Movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Corey gushes over, Lloyd, you're such a nice guy. I don't want to see you get hurt. She doesn't date guys like you. And Lloyd says, maybe I want to get hurt. Like,
Yeah.
And lets you know right away, Lloyd's a different kind of leading man, than your
Yes.
kind of typical like 80s teen comedy, like high school comedy. So
Mm-hmm.
lets you know right away. We immediately then meet Diane and Jim Court. Again, as you mentioned before, Jim played by John Mahoney. They're driving to the graduation ceremony. She's practicing her valedictorian speech because she is, as you mentioned before, the class valedictorian, incredibly successful student who is incredibly goal-oriented.
Oh, yeah.
Except when it comes to her social life. Everything's about the future and not about the present, which is very different from Lloyd.
Yes.
We get an interesting moment at the graduation ceremony where, for some reason, they allow a young man in the class to butcher the greatest love of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what to think of that scene in that moment.
I don't know. Because a lot of times you'll have a salutatorian address and a class president address, and of course the valedictorian address. This apparently was like local Battle of the Bands reject address.
Unless it was the salutatorian address.
That's true. We shouldn't discount it.
Well, I will say that this class doesn't seem to have a lot of scholars in it.
No.
So maybe it's Diane, and then this was literally the second brightest guy in the class.
Yeah, Diane wins by default. This guy just turned in an assignment, and now he's salutatorian.
Now he's salutatorian. They brought a tissue box for some extra credit points.
Yeah, and he didn't mean to. It just fell out of his folder onto the teacher's desk.
The singer announces that there's going to be a party with 8 kegs, which again is an appropriate thing to bring up at a graduation ceremony. And by the way, nobody in the audience seems to mind.
Nope.
Like they're just kind of like, yeah, that's so and so being so and so.
They are in Seattle, and it is like 1988. The graduation year, so like they're aware that things are pretty grungy around here. So. It's a nice tame party with 8 kegs.
Yeah. Diane comes up and speaks, and the only one who's really paying attention is Lloyd. He's very fidgety. I love how fidgety Lloyd is.
Yeah.
Jim gives her a car for her graduation, so after she's done, he gets her a car. Stick shift, despite the fact that she doesn't drive stick.
I know. I made that comment to my wife. I'm like, why would you give someone a car that they don't know how to drive? Like, that's just moronic.
Lloyd's living with his sister, as you mentioned before. He's living with his sister, Joan Cusack, played by Joan Cusack. Their parents are in Germany.
That's they can't make it back to graduation. Like, they called.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like with last week at Hope Floats.
Yeah.
Birdie's sister, the big Hollywood actress who doesn't make it back for her mother's death.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. You get some more insight on Lloyd and just kind of how in the moment he is. He has a nephew who's maybe, I don't know, what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, I'd say 4.
And Lloyd's sister is just getting out like, why can't you be his uncle and not his playmate? Yeah. I love the little scenes there. She's also a single mom. Fun little dynamic between them.
Yeah.
We get a lot of cutting back and forth between Lloyd and Diane early in the film. Diane and Jim are at home. He gives Diane her mother's ring. Diane's like, everybody thinks I'm a priss, and Dad's like, you've been working hard. It's all working out. It's all going to plan. And so he completely, I don't know if enables is the right word, but enables her, her goal-orientedness, or, and kind of, discourages her from living in the moment. Everything is about the future.
Yeah, he really keeps her on a path he wants her on.
Yes. Let's see. We got Lloyd. He's practicing kickboxing outside. He's got his Clash t-shirt on, which he wears a lot in this movie. Lloyd calls Diane. He gives her a call. He's going to call her up and ask her out. He gets Jim on the phone. So they talk for a little bit, and Lloyd's like, yeah, she's pretty great, isn't she? And Jim's like, yeah. He takes down Lloyd's number. Eventually gives it to Diane. Jim gets a call that Diane won the Reed Fellowship in England. So all this hard work is paying off. So she's got this basically like a full ride.
Yeah.
Over in England that she'll be going to at the end of the summer. So she's got a clock ticking now.
Yeah, it's like 16 weeks or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's a mention that she's got to take a plane to get over there. Diane is very skeptical, very anxious about taking the plane over to England. Don't think that's going to come back later on in the movie. Guys.
No. Nope.
So Diane calls Lloyd back. She calls him back, and Lloyd's like, "Hey, I read about your fellowship in the paper. It's just, hey, you want to go out?" And after a little initial hesitation, yeah, she goes. What? I'm going to go with. So they end up. She ends up saying yes. I love the little moment afterwards. After they hang up, Lloyd picks up his nephew and plays the 5-year-old like a guitar.
Yeah. So excited.
Yeah. So again, it's you kind of get why Lloyd's sister gives him a hard time. But
oh yeah,
I'm sure the 5-year-old just loves every moment.
Oh, he's got to, yeah.
So Lloyd goes to pick up Diane. He's wearing his long trench coat, the aforementioned long trench coat. He and Jim chit chat a little bit in the doorway. You ever hear kickboxing? It's the sport of the future.
Yeah, you can't tell really. If Lloyd is so chatty because of his confidence, or if he's so chatty because he's so nervous.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, because he's not intimidated by meeting her father.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive because, he's still just a teenage kid that just doesn't let things faze him. And so it was really impressive to see him just, your daughter's amazing. And, it's just, He's not trying to kiss his butt. He's just being genuine.
Yeah, he's Lloyd is always Lloyd. I love the little moment. She walks in the room. She's wearing a very beautiful dress. She's got a big flower in her hair, and Lloyd just kind of out loud just goes, "Whoa," to himself.
Yeah.
Again, and he's very in the moment. He's very kind of almost meta in that sense.
Oh yeah.
And one of the first things she says is like, 'cause she's still a little hesitant to go, and like, if I want to go home early, will you take me home? And right away, yes. Yep. Yes, I'll take you home.
Yeah.
So
it's like, her long-term plan is unknown, and his long-term plan is Diane Court.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's well said, and we'll get into that in a little more as we go here too.
Yeah.
So they show up to Eric Stoltz's party. I didn't even bother to take down Eric Stoltz's character. They show up to Eric Stoltz's party.
It doesn't matter. It's the same. It's the same character that hosts all the drug party in Pulp Fiction.
Basically.
it's still Eric Stoltz.
Lloyd asks for a magic marker, a felt pen.
Right. I was hoping though it would have been. Granted, it obviously wasn't going to happen. But oh my gosh, I would have lost it if when he deemed when he deemed Lloyd the keymaster at the party. If like. Gozer showed up.
Yeah. Gozer, Gozerian.
Rick Moranis gets upset because he was the keymaster.
Are you the keymaster? Yes.
Yeah, this party is just
I
never went to a high school party.
I rarely went and did not enjoy myself when I was there.
And I honestly never went. So I guess that makes me a little bit better than you.
Life is a contest. I win.
Younger me was way more cooler than younger you.
Yeah.
As the person who has never invited to one of those parties. But I just don't think that's probably how high school parties go. I don't know. I get the impression that that's Hollywood's version of a teenage party.
Sure.
But in talking to my students, it seems more like teenage parties are, okay, we're at a party now. What do we do? So they just kind of sit around on their phones and eat chips, and then
and then eventually
they don't know what to do. They just know that adults have parties, so we need to have one.
So that's what we do because we're pretending to be adults right now.
Yeah, but Hollywood parties, they seem to be off the hook.
Yeah, they are. So everybody there knows Lloyd. Everybody's got a, "Hey Lloyd, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Nobody says hi to Diane.
Right.
At least, I mean, not initially. Just as
No.
we're walking through the
They're,
party.
they're more amazed that she's even there.
Yeah.
They know who she is because she's just an entity, but they're almost, you get the sense that like as she walks by people, they're mildly uncomfortable that she's there.
Yeah. They just don't know what to make of it.
Right, yeah.
It's not like they don't want her there. They're just confused.
It's like they've seen a two-headed dog or something. Like it doesn't hurt them, but they're just amazed by, oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't believe what I just saw. Diane Court at a party.
Two-headed Ione Skye.
With like Men in Black 2 CGI, like Johnny Knoxville with two heads.
So Jeremy Piven throws Lloyd against a wall and just screams in his face.
Because he's Jeremy Piven.
We cut to Corey again. This kind of I don't know if I would say like an unnecessary B plot, but just a fun B plot that kind of goes throughout this movie. Yeah, it completely really doesn't do much to the overall narrative, but whatever. You got to have a B plot.
This is more of a C plot, really.
Yeah, she's written 63 songs this year about her ex-boyfriend,
about Joe. And it's always like a loud whisper. Like she never like talks to you. She's always like just on the cusp of bawling her eyes out. Yeah. Right. She's thought everything is just so like overly emotional. Even even when talking to Lloyd, it is gushing over how great a guy Lloyd is.
Yeah. I think I love the Corey character. She's got things. She's got some things to work out.
A few.
Yep. I hope that she's seeking some. I think some professional assistance would help her out.
Yeah.
Just help her lead probably a happier life.
She needs it.
We get an interesting moment here that may or may not come up a little later in the show. The school counselor shows up to the party.
Yeah.
Played by the aforementioned Baby Newworth. And right there, the driveway of the party, she's like, everybody else has a plan. Why don't you apply to the community college?
Yeah.
And he kind of hems and haws, and eventually she goes away.
But the thing is like, she pulls up into the driveway of this party, gets out like she's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
No, like Lloyd doesn't seem phased that she's there. It's like it's another party, and here's Baby Newworth.
Yeah, and here's my school counselor.
Right. It's like and but also never takes off the counseling hat. Like she's at this party and still trying to help Lloyd find his path.
Yeah. I will say, like, Lloyd says something like she's like, you have to decide on a career, and Lloyd says, I know that I don't know.
Right.
Forgive me for pontificating a bit in the school counselor realm, but like that's something very similar that I'll talk with kids about. Like, it's okay that you don't know. Like, not knowing is part of this. It's like so many people transfer or change majors, change career paths. Yeah. But like you got to do something after high school. Whatever the something is, just get the ball rolling, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
So, and again, Lloyd is very self-aware, which kind of comes to, like, I know that I don't know. And I think that also plays into his confidence. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I tell students sometimes, not from a counsel role, but we'll just have conversations. And I told seniors in the past, I'm like, it's perfectly fine that you don't know. So why don't you spend some time figuring out what you don't want to do? Yeah. Like go get a job, hate it, and that might be the one that kickstarts you into something else.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's actually an approach I take with students a lot. Is like, okay, sometimes it's hard to figure out what we like. Let's figure out what you don't like. Cross them off the list, because it's like it's like taking a multiple choice test. If you don't, you don't know what the right answer is, but if you can get rid of one or two of the wrong answers,
it makes it a lot clearer.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, little professional educator 101 here, Oz.
There you go.
Let's see. She calls her dad from the party because that's what she does.
Yeah, because checks in with her pops.
Yeah. And then some kind of cute things. He's always checking at her. He's always kind of watching, like literally. He's just kind of pokes his head out and just kind of sees how she's doing.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like he just brought her to the party because they get separated fairly early.
Yeah.
But then he just lets her do her thing. And, like you said, he keeps checking on her, from a distance, making sure she's okay and comfortable.
Mhm.
But he never he's not overly protective of her. He doesn't
Yeah.
crowd her. He's doing this keymaster thing, and
Yes.
she's with Corey, and it's okay.
Yeah. And as the designated key master, again, he is in charge of keeping people's keys safe, or if necessary, telling them you're not driving.
Right.
So I guess I commend the partygoers for having that role there. So eventually, they have to drive drunken Mike Cameron home, former
Right.
White Sox and Seattle Mariners center fielder Mike Cameron.
Yeah. He really stuck out like a sore thumb in this party.
He was dressed in his Mariners jersey.
Yeah, he still had his Mariners jersey.
I mean, it was in Seattle, so
why not?
So they drove him home, and I get a nice little scene, and she says,
eventually get him home. He doesn't
yeah,
know
eventually,
where he lives.
yeah, after driving around every street in Seattle, and then eventually Lloyd drops her off, and she says, call me tomorrow, and he says, well, today's tomorrow. I don't know, it's just a fun little line. I that stuck out to me. Later,
is this where like she just they go to part, and then she just gives him a really big hug.
Yeah. She gives it.
Like she just kind of thrust it on him. Like he wasn't even expecting it. It was just she finally just lived in the moment and let her emotions take over, and she had a great time.
And she really enjoyed it. She did.
And she's glad she went, and it was something that she almost turned down because Diane Court wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But I think she also recognized on the phone that no one's ever taken a chance on Diane Court either.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she mentioned to Corey, because somebody, or maybe it was the blonde, somebody had asked her, why are you here with Lloyd Dobler? And she's like, he made me laugh.
He makes me laugh.
Yeah. So it's just, he's not a dangerous guy. He's comfortable.
And later, she invites him over for dinner. And so a tie-clad Lloyd is there. They're eating dinner. It's Jim is there with Diane and Lloyd and a couple of Jim's co-workers. At one point, Lloyd is literally framed between the two of them.
Yeah.
Again, little foretelling there. Jim and Diane tell the story about how when she was younger, she panicked on the plane. Let's see, Jim and the guests kind of grill Lloyd about his future, and what do you want to do? I just want to spend as much time as possible with Diane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I just want to.
Because that's all they know is they just you got a plan, you got a future.
Yeah.
And so it's just this conversation is just as foreign to them as it is to him.
Mm-hmm. Lloyd says, I don't want to buy, sell, process, or repair anything. And then he talks about kickboxing, and to which the adults in the room all give each other very uncomfortable looks.
Right. It was kind of a cool speech, the whole, I don't want to buy, sell, or process anything. I don't want to buy anything sold or processed. I don't want to sell anything bought or processed. And I don't want to process anything bought or sold.
Yeah, again, it is a fun moment. And again, he's very self-aware. He knows himself very well. Jim and there's a knock at the door, and Jim and Diane greet two IRS agents.
On a Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know the IRS that well, but I even said to my wife, I'm like, why do these guys work late?
Yeah. And they just tell him, Jim, you were under investigation for tax fraud. Yeah. So, so there's that.
Just, there's there's the sledgehammer.
Another Peter Gabriel song.
That's why I framed it that
way. Lloyd is hesitant to go to Diane's job at the nursing home because he doesn't like to see old people eat. It reminds him of death. But eventually, she convinces him to go, and he kind of helps out. It's kind of a cute scene. Yeah,
I love this scene where he's up there Lloyd Dobler presents.
Yeah, he's introducing Cocoon. Yeah,
we're gonna watch Cocoon, and this old man just gets up and wants to storm out. I don't want to watch a movie that feels good. It's ladies and Cocoon. which is just a fitting movie because, like, hey, everybody that lives in this old folks home, you want to watch a movie about people that live in an old folks home?
Do you want to see what hope looks like and have it dashed away from you at the end?
Right. You want to realize the only way you can have a second chance is through the help of aliens? Like,
and Wilford Brimley.
And Steve Guttenberg.
That's right, Steve Guttenberg.
I do like Cocoon.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I recall enjoying it enough. I think it's an early Ron Howard.
It's a Ron Howard joint. Yeah.
So Ron Howard movies are rarely spectacular, but they're always decent.
Right. Yeah, they're like the French vanilla of the ice cream world. Just a little tastier than regular vanilla, but it's not
still vanilla.
Offend you. Right,
Yeah.
it's still vanilla.
Although I will pause for a second because I know Melissa L will call this out if I don't mention it. She refuses to acknowledge that vanilla is a flavor.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, went out to Wendy's pre-taping here, brought back vanilla Frosties for myself and the kid. And she's like, "You didn't get chocolate?" It's like, what's wrong with vanilla? It's vanilla. So comment below, folks. Is vanilla a flavor, or is it just like the base for everything?
Yeah, is it like the litmus test of like everything starts with vanilla and then you add flavor to it?
Yeah. Vanilla is a flavor. It has its own bean.
Exactly. I can understand water not having a flavor.
Yes.
But no, vanilla has a flavor, Melissa L.
Yeah, I got a feeling that this will only throw gas onto this fire that is this topic here.
Well, we did.
I digress.
We did have one comment on last week's Hope Floats video.
Mm-hmm.
We have one comment. You want to hear the comment?
Yes, please.
It's from Patreon subscriber Melissa L.
Who?
Her comment was, "They all float down here."
Oh, Melissa L. What will she come up with next? That would have been a different movie. Hope Floats with with Pennywise the Clown,
with Tim Curry.
Yeah,
Sandra Bullock and Tim Curry in Hope Floats. And Hope Floats down here.
All of the taxidermied animals in Ramona's house are holding red balloons. Back to Say Anything. So they deem that they are friends with potential. So that's the conclusion they come to. Yeah. Lloyd then teaches Diane how to drive the car. It's interesting. Jim gives her this car. It's clearly been at least a couple of weeks since he gave it to her. But for whatever reasons, he has not taken the time to teach her how to drive it. So Lloyd does. So they're just driving in circles in front of the retirement home.
Do you think Jim's unwillingness to teach Diane how to drive a car that she doesn't know how to drive is a metaphor for giving her the opportunity to get away, but never really wanting her to?
I think you just blew my mind, my friend.
Yeah. There you go. I'm like the Delphonics.
Mm-hmm. Well, he both does and doesn't want her to leave.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah. The Delphonics.
He's like, he wants her to leave so that he can brag about her being gone, but
Yes.
once she's gone, he can't control her anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly loves his daughter, but he also loves the idea of his daughter.
The idea of being the single parent that can provide.
Yeah.
Through any means necessary.
Yeah, Jim is a very flawed character. Incredibly flawed character. So Lloyd's teaching Diane how to drive. They talk about confidence, and he then kisses her. They kiss as they're doing this.
And it wasn't like Harry Connick Jr. trying to kiss Sandra Bullock last week. This was I'm overwhelmed right now, and this is my release. And then she kisses him back.
Yeah. So Jim sees that they're enjoying being together. Then there's like a little montage of them kissing, and then cuts to them having sex in the back of his car, while In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel plays.
Yeah, listening to Pete Gabriel.
Oh, Pete Gabriel. I'm sure he loves it when people call him that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Gabriel.
Pete Gabriel.
The next morning, Jim confronts Diana coming home without calling. You can say anything to me. I hope you still know that.
I rolled my eyes when he dropped the titular line. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't help it. I told you, you know you can say anything. And I'm like, oh, good Lord, Cameron Crowe.
I think every movie should have dialogue that states the title of the movie in it.
Well, I've shared before on the show my love for I think it's Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yeah,
where they had the where they had the character that works at the video store. Oh, I mentioned it last time. I gotta find that clip just because it's so hilarious.
It's like we're in some kind of Star Wars. As you're looking things up there, as I can hear the.
Oh, I've already found it. I've already found it.
I'm sure.
And there's multiple. Like, it's not just one clip. They come back to that.
Oh, it's a recurring bit. Oh,
yeah,
I love Upright Citizens Brigade.
Oh, I do too.
So again, Jim confronts Diane. You could say anything to me, and she tells him, "We had sex last night."
Yeah,
I went after him. Was it like I attacked him?
Yeah. Well, like, she built it up like she was going to resist it, you know?
Yeah.
Because Dad was like, did he, force himself or whatever? She's like, no, he was, but I attacked him anyway. And I'm like, ooh, that's your dad.
Yeah.
But hey, he opened the door.
Yeah, you could say anything. You got to be ready to hear anything then.
Yeah, right.
You could easily just as much call this movie Hear Anything.
Yeah, I did that when my daughter was a kindergartner. I remember she was in the dining room. We had come home from school.
Mm.
I'm doing dishes, and she comes up and she said, Daddy, somebody on the bus said a bad word. And I'm like, okay, what does it start with? And again, keep in mind, she's on like the little kid bus.
Yeah.
I go, what does it start with? She said it starts with an F. And I thought, in my mind, I'm like, okay, she doesn't know the F word.
Yes.
So maybe it was like fart,
Yeah.
Because, and I'm like, well, what does it rhyme with? And then she just said the word. And I'm pretty sure my ears fell off my head into the sink of dishwater. Like, it was so
into the garbage disposal.
I had lockjaw for 30 seconds. Like, it was like, oh, you're my child,
my sweet little angel.
Right? She's like, they said the F word, and I'm like, you don't even know what that one is. Oh, I was wrong. She knew. Because we don't
rhymes
speak like that
with yeah.
That's what does it rhyme with? Boom. Oh, is there another F word that rhymes with that F word? Because I'm pretty sure I was looking for a word like duck or truck. But no, I got the full.
You got the full one there. Yeah. Fun little scene at the music store. So after we see Diane tell Jim that they had sex, Corey figures out that from Lloyd, just based on his body language and his overall demeanor, and he's just kind of has that glow about him. He's just very happy, and everything's changed. Everything's changed. He writes, Lloyd writes Diane a letter, very meaningful letter as well. Back at the retirement home, the IRS investigators are back, and they keep peppering Jim with questions as they serve the residents dinner. And the IRS agent's like, your income hasn't changed in 17 years.
Right.
On to something there. Later, Jim gives Diane her plane ticket to England, so this is kind of getting more real for her.
Yeah.
She says she's thinking about waiting a year so she could support Jim, and Jim's like, no, you gotta go. And then Jim starts kind of laying into her, like, you and Lloyd have nothing in common. You should break up with him. Give him this pen. You can,
here.
He can write you letters. Jim says he wants Diane to have everything. He does admit he's being selfish. I'm stressed by the situation. And live your life. I love you. It's like, he doesn't really mean that.
It's total guilt trip. Like,
yep. Jim's
awful.
Jim's got some issues.
A lot,
loves his kid, but he's very selfish, which he does say. Yeah,
he and Corey need to go seek counseling together.
At which she brings her unamplified electric guitar with her everywhere.
Just strums that acoustic
Yeah.
electric.
Yeah. Back at the dojo, Lloyd's teaching a class, gets a call from Dan. He's like, "Yeah, they actually pay me for this," which kind of lets you know that. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. That's a fun fact. I read in the trivia. You may have read it too. Same dojo they used in Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Cobra Kai, right there.
Lloyd tells her that they kind of go back like, you don't have to say it. Then they say they love each other. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, "Well, but we need to spend time apart. I need to study."
Right.
And Lloyd's like, "Okay." She's uncomfortable because he says that Corey knows what happened, and
Yeah,
she's uncomfortable that like Corey and DC know this. And then she says, "Well, I told my dad." Lloyd's not thrilled with that.
right. Yeah, like she's upset that his friends know.
Yeah.
Which, he said, I didn't tell them. They just figured it out. Well, I told my dad. Like, okay, I'm not the weird one.
And she says she loves him, but basically breaks up with him.
Yeah.
And so they part ways. She's sobbing. He's crying in the rain. Calls his sister from a phone booth. "I gave her my heart, and she gave me a pen." One of the lines in this movie. One of those Cameron Crowe lines. Lloyd's trying to kind of figure things out, so he goes to hang out with the guys because he realizes that most of his friends are women.
Right.
So he goes to the gas and sip, hang out with the guys and be a real man.
Yeah.
Lloyd doesn't like it.
No, not at all.
No, it's not Lloyd. He's a sensitive guy, and these are guys who.
Yeah, this is like Jeremy Piven and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good choice, Lloyd.
So the world is full of guys. Be a man. Don't be a guy. Let's see. Jim shops for luggage for Diane. Kind of flirts with the coworker a little bit, and then his credit cards get declined. So things are closing in on Jim.
Yeah. Things got really real for him right here.
Yes. Cuts to him sitting fully clothed in the bathtub.
Right.
We've all been there.
I was waiting for Daniel Craig's Bond to come in and right? It seems like a very like Ava Green thing to do, and he was being Ava Green in this one. Vesper Lind.
Then Jim went and kept playing poker with Mads Mikkelsen.
Daniel Craig comes in and starts sucking on her fingers because they're cold. I've seen Casino Royale a few times.
Casino Royale is arguably my favorite Bond movie.
Oh, it's a great one. Oh man,
yeah.
It wasn't my first Bond movie, but I'll say it's my because I went a long time without watching a James Bond movie. I think Die Another Day was my first James Bond movie, but I went along to that movie with somebody. But I think Casino Royale was the first one where I'm like, I want to see this.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, it's so good. I can't say that I've kept up with all of Daniel Craig's Bond films.
Same.
But the ones I've seen, I've enjoyed. I just, but that one for sure it's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. That night, Diane's tossing and turning in bed, and then we get the scene, Oz, the scene that people know this movie by. She hears music playing outside, and he's standing in front of his car with a boombox over his head, playing "In Your Eyes" by Pete Gabriel.
It's definitely a scene that lives on in pop culture history, but if you give it any more thought than just the reference, like it gets really cringy real quick. Like, hey, remember me? Remember that song you lost your virginity to? I know you're lying awake in bed listening to it right now, but we're not together.
It does. The scene does. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just a little bit of like, whew, that's like, yeah. I mean, yeah, that song has some impact, but boy, you're really putting all your chips out on this one, like, because either it works or a restraining order's on its way.
Would have been bad for Lloyd if he had to replace the big D batteries in that thing halfway through.
Exactly. Yeah, they burn out halfway through. Oh man.
Oh, hang on. I gotta go get 6D batteries to.
Sorry, Diane. Those batteries are why those boomboxes weighed as much as they did.
Oh man, yeah, those things were enormous.
Yeah.
And they were built like bricks too.
Yeah, they were.
The next day, Diane goes to the local IRS office and she talks with Philip Baker Hall, who happens to be working that day.
I thought that too. Like I saw him in the cast list, and then I saw him in that 30-second spot, and then he's just gone. So
yeah. So she goes to talk to Philip Baker Hall, IRS investigator, and he's like, "We've been investigating your dad for 5 years. He takes the money of the residents after they die."
Yeah.
And Diane, of course, doesn't believe him or doesn't want to believe him. She goes back to the nursing home and starts kind of going through stuff and finds thousands of dollars hidden there. So it's true.
Well, and he had made the reference too. He's like, look around the house. Are there a lot of high-priced items around the $9,000 range? Which at the dinner party, I think Lloyd had made a reference to the jukebox, and he had made the comment of like, "Yeah, it's $9,000." Just like, oh, how fitting that the exact dollar amount was laid out in advance.
Yeah, thanks, Philip Baker Hall.
Yeah.
So she finds this money, and then he lies to her.
Yeah.
He just lies to her after as honest as she has been with him. He just straight up lies to her, and then she's like, "I found the money." And then, of course, he pivots and he gets defensive. Well, I take better care of people than their families do. Yeah. That's not how you do things. If he gives them, I hope that he gives them great care at his facility. I hope that they are cared for mentally and emotionally, and they are treated with the dignity that they should be. You don't do that. That is not justification to steal from people.
No, that's a self-justification of this is okay.
Yeah. Again, that's him being selfish. That's him framing everything, because he's like we've kind of hinted around with some other things in the past, as he's a victim. He sees himself as a victim. He sees himself as a hero. And
this should be okay.
Yeah, he's due his just rewards. I do this for you, and you do this for me. Who are you any any wiser? You're dead.
Yeah. It's okay that I have your money. Like, I took care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so disgusting.
Yeah, it's really gross. Cut the Lloyd sparring with Don the Dragon Wilson.
Exactly right.
Back at the dojo, Diane runs in. Lloyd sees her, and of course he lets his guard down, takes a kick straight to the face from the dragon.
Yeah. Not Rick Steamboat.
No, not that dragon.
Right.
I was wondering, as I said that, it's like, I hope he brings up, I hope we get a Ricky Steamboat reference. Yes, we did. And then he blew fire out of his mouth with his torch. Oh, Don the Dragon.
He's dressed in his green dragon outfit.
As he's sparring with Lloyd, he's got a big mouthful of lighter fluid the whole time.
just waiting. John Cusack, Ricky Steamboat, face to face.
Oh god! So
some little kid turns the lights off just so you can get the full fire effect.
Oh, so he busts his nose. I do love you get the guy setting Lloyd's nose. Right
oh
there.
yeah,
okay.
Right.
So she says she needs him and loves him, and after just an initial hesitation on Lloyd's part, he kisses her and says he loves her.
With a face full of blood.
With a face full of blood. We get an interesting little scene, and one that I honestly don't know if I really like or really don't like. It's like a 45-second scene of two attorneys, Jim's attorney and I think the prosecution, striking a deal.
Yeah.
And they literally are eating McDonald's together. And and they're going back and forth. Well, this many months and this fine. No, I can't do that. Well, this many months and this fine. Okay, we could do that.
Yeah, they're just settling on the penalty.
Yeah. So we cut to Jim in prison.
Yeah.
At the Spokane Correctional Facility. And Lloyd's there talking to him, not Diane. And Jim is clearly upset that he's talking with Lloyd. And he asks, like, what are you going to do, Lloyd? He's like, what I want to do for a living is to be with your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at it. And Jim's like, you're a distraction. You're not a permanent part of her life. She's championing mediocrity by being with you. So Jim is getting really nasty.
Oh, yeah.
Lloyd here. And it's made apparent that Diane is not speaking with him. Eventually Lloyd gives him a letter that she wrote, and Lloyd reveals that she went through several different versions of it, including one that ended with "I can't stop loving you." That's not the version that he received, but just the fact Lloyd verbally says, just the fact that she wrote it means that she does care about you. And then Diane eventually walks in, gives Jim a hug. He kind of hems and haws, and then eventually apologizes for not being honest with her. And then she says, write me, and gives Jim the pen that Jim gave her to give to Lloyd.
Which, in the reality of the prison system, they probably would have taken that pen away from him.
Probably.
She basically just handed him a shiv. Write me, Dad. Okay. It's like when Pee-wee slips the file into the foot-long hot dog.
1 foot long.
And the cop's like, wait a minute.
It's all covered in mustard.
Yeah. Even Pee-wee was more conspicuous about that than what Diane was at this pen.
I brought you your favorite pocket knife, Dad.
Right. Here you go.
Oh, and then we get the last scene here, a little epilogue scene. Lloyd and Diane are sitting in the plane about to take off because Lloyd had told Jim, I'm going with her. So they're in the plane, about ready to take off. Lloyd has brought all sorts of things to help her stay calm and be distracted. And he's going through. He just keeps talking to her. He just keeps talking to her to keep her calm down. Like, hear my voice. Don't get caught in your own head. And if something's going to happen, it's going to happen within the first 5 minutes. So once that no smoking sign dings, we're safe. And so it keeps cutting back and forth between looking at them, looking at the sign, looking at them, looking at the sign, and eventually it dings and it immediately cuts to credit. So everything's going to be all right.
Everything's going to be fine.
And that, folks, is 1989's Say Anything. Oz and I will now give this film our own unique rating. 1989's Cameron Crowe helmed Say Anything. Oz, how would you rate this flick?
I'm going to give this 8 kickboxing dojos.
8 kickboxing dojos. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Like, not dojos that can kickbox, but dojos where you learn kickboxing.
Oh, okay. So the dojo itself is not kickboxing.
It's an adjective, not a verb.
Okay. That makes complete sense. Thank you.
I didn't want to confuse you.
I would not have slept tonight had you not clarified it.
Trying to visualize a dojo that can kickbox.
Preposition? I'm going to go with it. Have fun finding an image for this one. I'm going to go with 87 children being played as guitars.
Done.
Okay. 87 children being played as guitars.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll probably just post a picture of the Cars for Kids commercial. And I'll have 87 pictures of kids playing guitar, and we'll just call it even.
Or 87 stills of the Cars for Kids commercial.
There you go.
Yeah.
Those kids can't drive a stick shift either.
No, they can't. There's the through line right there. That's why the cars were donated, is because they were stick shifts.
And I don't know why they gave cars to those kids.
Let alone stick shifts. With their little arms, their little feet, they gotta hit the clutch at the same time. No,
you're gonna have to have a very large child to drive that vehicle.
Or 2 children stacked on top of each other under Lloyd's trench coat.
You have to team up like a couple of minions. Or like the scientists in Inner Space once they get shrunk down. You ever seen Inner Space?
I have, but it's been a long time since I've seen Inner Space.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan,
That
Martin
was
Short.
That was another my mom and me film, because I mentioned, Predator and
Yeah,
Lethal Weapon before, but I think she had a thing for Dennis Quaid
I was gonna say I don't
because because as has been established, my mom was thirsty for 80s hunks.
that she was. Yeah,
Schwarzenegger, Mel Gibson,
yeah,
Dennis Quaid.
she wasn't watching that movie for Martin Short.
No,
I'll
no,
tell
you beat
that.
me to it. It was definitely not watching it for Martin Short. She was watching it because she was thirsty for Dennis Quaid. Shout out
Yeah.
to my mom and her thirst for 80s hunks.
Yeah. We'll be back next week where we discuss Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, next up, folks, we got Outside Insight. Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs looking for unprofessional reviews that we find funny, and we will now share a couple of those with you, our loyal listeners. Oz, what is your Outside Insight for saying?
I'm going to tiptoe around a lot of the words that I don't want to say on this show.
Some of the words that your daughter said. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Multiple times are in here. So this is a half-star review by Allie. Dropped in May a couple of years ago. This was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. What the blank was this movie?
Oh my!
I genuinely believe that the two Lego people from the Lego movie have more chemistry than the two leads. Blanket. The Lego movie is a better movie than this movie. Say anything? Okay, how about I say this? This movie blanking sucked. I went into this movie thinking it was a rom-com, but instead I got a lesson on blank and taxes. What the blank? Half a star. Half a star because I like John Cusack and it came out the year Taylor Swift was born. I like this movie because something else happened in 1989.
Because 1989 was a good year.
Half a star for that alone.
Half a star because it was made in 1989. I also gave a half a star to Major League simply because it was made in 1989.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. I went in thinking I was watching a rom-com, but got a lesson on taxes.
There's a lot to unpack in that one.
Yeah. Wait do you watch it? When do you watch Attack of the Clones or Force Awakens? Or not Force Awakens. What was episode 1?
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. When do you watch Phantom Menace? I thought I was going to watch about lightsabers and got a lesson on politics.
Politics, yeah. Space politics. Right. Hear ye, the Space Senate is now in session.
Go to the bathroom, kids, and get your popcorn.
Yes,
you've got time
for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. So, what's your outside insight?
My outside insight is 2 sentences. It's from the Internet Movie Database from February 2020 from Chow Hanra Jankumar.
Rolls off the tongue.
And I think there's a cry for help in here. So just that's where I'm going. Yes, I watched it late after a lot of recommendations. Wish I had known about this movie long back when I was a teen. I could really have used some stuff from the movie.
Oh, say anything. Everybody uses this as a reference to pickup lines.
Yeah. I was so lonely. If only I had seen Say Anything.
Yeah. It wasn't until I saw Say Anything now that I realized I could have just asked some girl out.
That I could have said something.
Yeah. I just didn't say anything.
Now I say nothing and live in my own loneliness and misery.
Oh, here's my link to my Second Life. My Second Life account.
So, Chow Hanrajan Kumar, I hope you've got better days ahead, my friend.
I hope so.
And folks, we're at that time of the show where we give you our signature segment, the 3-2-1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about the movie in question. In this case, Say Anything. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
My first one is the appreciation for the non-social circle romance.
Okay.
I work in a high school, you work in a high school.
Yep.
And a lot of times you see the relationships that are forged based on status and where you are in the social hierarchy. And of course, once you get out of high school, all that breaks apart and you just go for somebody that's compatible. And so I really like that this movie portrayed that of you don't have to run together to be together, and these two, they fit together.
That reminds me of briefly. This goes back probably about a dozen years. A social worker and I were running a group at the school, and there was a male kind of jock that was in the group, and there was a female, kind of a quiet female goth kid. And as the group went on, they kind of started flirting with each other, like really subtly. And of course, like me and my colleague, we pick up on this, and afterwards we kind of like the kids leave, and then we're kind of debriefing a little bit. We're both just kind of like like just in our own stupid ways. It was just, I don't know. It was fun to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get them out of their circles and realize that there are other people out there. So that's cool.
Not that we were trying to play matchmaker, but it was just,
right.
I don't know. There was just something amusing about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have to perform for their friends.
Exactly.
So they just let their guard down and found themselves.
So much of high school behavior is performative. Oh my goodness. It's so performative.
Yeah. So... my second good is that Lloyd is just a genuinely good guy.
He is.
There was no ulterior motive. It was, I'm infatuated with Diane and I want to make her feel as good as possible, but not overdo it. Like you could tell that everything Lloyd wants is what's best for Diane. It wasn't putting Lloyd's needs first, which is completely opposite of what her dad was doing. That's my second good. And my third is that this really is a pretty accurate depiction of teenage romance. Mm-hmm. On again, off again. Like they still like each other, but there's a reason why they shouldn't, and it's never really clearly communicated. Mm-hmm. And it's just a lot of whatever. And I'm glad that they worked I won't say they worked their way through it, but everything just kind of fell away and they ended up together. So that's my third, is that they, it really was a pretty accurate depiction. There wasn't any beautiful girl hiding behind a pair of glasses, and this wasn't a high school full of everybody is gorgeous. They were believable that, they're good people, but, Diane wasn't the most beautiful person in her class, and Lloyd was not the most, I don't even know what word I'm looking for there, because he is charismatic, but... Mm-hmm. He just wasn't the most fawned over, I guess,
he wasn't the quarterback of the football team.
Yeah. And so, and so I like that. That was pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. So what are your three goods?
My three goods, I love, we mentioned this earlier, but earlier in the film when they were at the party, I love how Lloyd just checks on her. Mm-hmm. Not that she needs to be checked on. So it's like, right. I don't look at that from like a dominant male perspective, or that, she's a possession to be watched or anything like that. He's keeping an eye on her because he knows she's nervous.
Right.
And she was hesitant to go in the first place, and he wants to make sure she's okay.
And he likes looking at her.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just, and this kind of goes with the good guy theme. He wants to make sure that she's safe and that she's enjoying herself enough, and that and he's even kind of following through on his word that because she had asked him if I want to go home early, will you take me home? And so mm-hmm. he's a man of his word. He's a person of his word, and he's just doing his best to be genuine.
And to go along with all that, the reason he wasn't with her the whole night is because he was also being the good guy and keeping everyone else safe by keeping their keys.
That was another potential good I had, was just the fact that there was a keymaster at the party. So despite how raucous things are, they were responsible enough to designate a keymaster.
Right.
My second good will be actions have consequences. Jim, you can't do what you did and get away with it. Again, as you and I have insinuated with other real-life things, how sometimes actions don't seem to have consequences when entitled people clearly break laws and get away with it. It was good to see that Jim has had consequences for his actions. And he's got to do 9 months in prison. You can't break the law and get away with it. especially when you're abusing people like that.
Right.
My last good is the hanging with the guys at the gas and sip scene. You and I think, could identify with Lloyd. I think a little bit in this
Oh
moment.
yeah.
How like,
Oh yeah.
like neither one of us were ever like that kind of male.
No.
And Lloyd, I think he kind of felt obligated to like sort of try it on. It's like I want to see what this is like. It's almost like a scientific experiment.
Right.
As he's he's trying to refine himself after Diane begrudgingly broke up with him, and he's hanging out with Jeremy Piven and the boys, and they're talking about women. Like there's the little kid there that says the thing that I can't say because we're a PG podcast.
Right.
But he clearly wanted nothing to do with it, but he was willing to try it to see what it felt
Yeah.
like. And
Well, two of them, like they start rapping, and
Yeah.
like they're just a mess.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just fun because they're performing for each other, both literally and figuratively.
Oh
These
yeah.
males there,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're trying to like outman each other, and it's toxic and it's gross and it's funny at the same time.
Yeah. I agree.
That was my three goods. So Oz, what are your two bads?
My first one is the Jim FBI subplot. It got in the way sometimes.
Mhm.
It wasn't shoehorned in because clearly it was arguably the main plot of the movie.
Yeah.
And its impact on Diane, but it felt clunky at times.
Sure.
And maybe it's because I just wanted to see more Lloyd and Diane, but we had to take a sidebar to deal with whatever, but again, I understand why it's there.
Yeah.
Because it showed Diane that no matter how much planning you have, you got to trust your gut too. And that the person you rely on for everything is actually the one that's not a good person. And the one who doesn't seem to have a plan after tomorrow is the guy who, is willing to do anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, the plot itself wasn't bad. It just, at times it broke up the groove of the movie. When they would,
it's like going back to your Phantom Menace analogy. Like we get a cool lightsaber scene with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon, and then 20 minutes in the space center.
Right. It's like I understand why it's there, and it's fine that it's there, but it's just like, we cut from a scene where I was like emotionally ready to go on with more Lloyd and Diane, and then we got to cut to dad serving tea at the or whatever. And my second one, and it's it kind of piggyback off my second good. My second bad is that Lloyd is the only good guy in this movie. Like every other guy that really we see that has a name is just a schmuck. I mean, the boys are the boys, and then there's Joe, who like is just Joe, and it's like, Lloyd's the only like good guy in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so it's obviously not realistic, but at the same time, like, they really did play it up like every male's a scumbag except except one, and it just, I don't know, like, I understand that Lloyd didn't really have any male friends. They have people he was friendly with, like the guys, mm-hmm. But they really did play it off like every other male in this movie was flawed. Yeah. Sure. What are your bads?
My bads, I'm gonna go with this kind of builds off one of yours. Jim sitting in the bathtub worrying, fully clothed. I'm so sad. I'm gonna sit in an empty bathtub in my suit.
Right. Diane thinks I'm pooping, but I'm not.
You okay in there, Dad? Don't come in. Don't come in.
Woo!
I'm not crying in the bathtub.
I'm not Diane. I was just taking a shower.
I just had some bad chili for lunch. So that one is just kind of like, okay, like, like
it was really, it's like you already gave him the titular line in the movie, and now you're going.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like everything with Jim was extreme, you know, including this.
Yeah. Boy, these Star Wars.
I'm going to watch that clip as soon as we're done.
It's like he's some kind of RoboCop.
Oh my! I'm texting you the link to the search now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My other bet is just simply Jeremy Piven, party animal.
Whoa!
It's Jeremy Piven. We graduated.
You want to know what I'm going to do next? See my next movie, PCU.
Where he's a slightly more literate version of this character.
Exactly.
And then he goes on to play the exact same character in The Goods. Have you ever seen that movie, The Goods?
Yes. Oh, yes. It's terrible.
It has some hilarious people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Terrible movie, but wow, did they get a lot of people in that movie.
Well, it's like that movie that come out there a decade or so ago. Like, it was like Movie 42 or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I have not seen it, but...
I did watch it.
Did you?
It's bad. It's terrible. But again, like, how did you get this many people to sign on to this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Had dirt on him or something.
Party animal Jeremy Piven. So, what's your haw for Say Anything?
I've got two.
Okay.
My first one is, where did Lloyd and Diane get the money to fly to England? Like, I understand she already has the ticket, but Lloyd clearly has no money, and one would think that the court's finances would be tied up.
Yeah.
So she went, which again is fine, but it was like, I watched it and I just, of course, was a little analytical. It was like, neither one of them should be able to afford this right now. So
he took the 6D batteries out of the boombox.
That's right.
Brought them to the recycling plant.
It sold them. So that's my first hun. My second hun, probably the one I had down as my original hun was,
sure.
How long was Jim in prison before he got hard? Like, like he's like, you get the vision. He hasn't really been there that long because you feel like it's the first visit, but like he's already chain smoking. His hair's lighter. He looks cut. Like he's
maxing out his reps on the prison yard bench press.
But it's like he's like hard. Like he's like trash talking and like
he's laying into Lloyd. He's absolutely like the filter's gone. He has no reason to hesitate on behalf of his daughter anymore.
And we haven't seen him smoke a cigarette the entire movie, and I think he puts down like 2 of them in the scene. And I just get the vision. I'm like, you're in for 9 months for tax fraud. This is a minimum security prison.
Yeah.
You're not doing hard time. Like, and he's all he's all orange is the new black in there.
he's giving like prison tats.
I know. He's just
making toilet wine.
Right. He's only been in there like a week.
He's pitted 2 gangs against each other.
Right. I just want to know, like, how long has he been in there? Like honestly, he's in there for this exact same reason that George Bluth went to prison.
Yeah.
And George wasn't that rough.
No. He just wanted an ice cream sandwich.
He loved it there. It was vacation.
Yeah, it was.
But for Jim Court can't handle it.
No.
He's got his own. He's like,
I didn't put that together. You're completely right. He did get hard really fast.
It's like, seriously, if you were to remake Story of Ricky, you've got Ricky, Tarzan, Zorro, and Jim Court.
He takes his glass eye out. He's got his mitts back there.
He's got his breath mitts in there. Like, he's cut a kid's tongue off before.
Nobody gets this reference right now.
Nope.
Not unless you watch the Craig Kilborn era.
You know what though? This is that movie's replacing one of my movies next month.
Really? Oh, that is bold.
Yeah.
That's gonna be That's going to be an interesting one to talk about in this PG podcast.
I just changed it because I was torn. One of them was a given. Like my first one for next month was an obvious one for me. But my second one was more like, I got to have a second one. And while I do love the movie of the second one, and it is a guilty pleasure, I'd forgotten about Ricky O. So yep, it's down, it's in. I'm already excited to talk about Story of Ricky next month.
Ricky. I can't believe it. Like I can't believe we're gonna be bringing Story of Ricky to our listeners.
Of course.
Oh
we've
my goodness.
We've covered The Thing. We can handle Story of Ricky.
Well, yeah. One was John Carpenter, one was not. But I am incredibly excited.
Is terrible.
That's true. It's the violence.
Yeah, and it's extreme violence. But that's okay.
All right. Well, we'll continue with Story of Ricky next month. Yeah.
I wonder how many people we're going to introduce to the Story of Ricky.
It's true. This could be a boom or bust episode for us. It could be what launches us into the stratosphere.
It'll be a bust. I'm excited. That'll be one I highly doubt my wife will watch with me.
Mine either. Yeah, mine will go on an hour and a half walk while we're watching that one. See you, Melissa.
I love that movie. Love that movie. Is that Patreon subscriber Melissa L?
That is Patreon subscriber Melissa L. Yes, that's right.
Make sure we're talking about the same person.
Melissa L. It's Patreon subscriber Melissa L.
Right.
As she is now fully been named.
So, all right, what's your hunt?
As we circle back that, I also have a couple of possible hunts. I'm going to start off on an incredibly philosophical note.
Okay.
My super philosophical hunt is: do you need ambition to be successful?
No.
Because that's Lloyd.
No.
Like that's kind of Lloyd in a nutshell, and Jim certainly thinks he does.
Right. I think if you just stay your course, because there is no tried and true definition of success.
Correct. And I literally had that conversation twice today with kids.
That you stay your course, and success it's a feeling. It's one of those it's one of those fourth nouns of person, place, thing, or an idea.
Sure.
And success is whatever you feel it should be. And so, no, I don't think one needs ambition. I just think one needs to stay the course. And, you stay in your lane and not necessarily compare yourself to everybody else and what their definition of success is. Because I've had talks with my students, too, that you got a person who's perfectly fine working an hourly wage, and then they get their free time to play video games all the time. They feel far more successful than that person who's chasing that six-figure salary and has to buy the lifestyle to match it. It's totally up to you.
Yeah. Are you happy? Are you healthy? Do you have enough means?
Yeah.
All right. So that's my super philosophical
like it.
The that kind of falls more in line with our shtick that I'll go with is if all the women are like, Lloyd's such a good guy, how come he's not desired by the other women or the characters who would be into him? And I don't know if there's an answer to this one or not, but I
think I could see maybe a lot of them put him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Of he's because he is such a great guy, they've all friend zoned him.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like Corey, for instance, she knows Joe's awful for her.
Yeah.
But she just gushes over Lloyd. She's protective of him. She lifts him up.
But it's he's that prototype that they all compare to. Mm-hmm. Again, because it's not the physical of Lloyd Dobler, it's just the personality. And so I think for all of them, they have such a solid relationship with him that they don't want to ruin a friendship by pursuing something more. Mm-hmm. Plus, honestly, up until Diane Court, Lloyd doesn't appear to have really been into anybody.
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, possibly that's the other side, is they're all waiting for him to, they would gladly hitch their wagon but he hasn't expressed the interest in them. Probably because all they do is whine and complain to him. Like if I were Lloyd, I would want nothing to do with Corey. You know, like I hear how you react to your ex-boyfriend. I don't want to be your new boyfriend.
I don't want to have 63 songs written about me.
Right. But no, it's both very good questions. Good
So,
Hans.
it's like, was I Lloyd in high school? Oh wait, he had confidence. That's the difference.
Yeah, you didn't have any of that.
No, there was no confidence there.
No, I special K'd that into you.
Sure. All of the pathos, none of the confidence.
Right. Yeah, and I would say I was probably very similar. I did have 2 long-term girlfriends in high school, but I was always that safe guy. Like, I was friends with everybody, you know, and it led probably, you know, much like you, to a very lonely experience, but whatever, you know, greater things have happened since.
Things worked out, as you said. You stay the
Yeah.
course, you stay true to yourself, good things happen. All right, well, that's Say Anything, Oz.
That's Say Anything.
What
That's it.
do we got next week?
It's back to my week, and my wife's second choice for this month is Off the Romantic Path. We're going straight comedy on this one, as we'll be watching the Jason Bateman, Rachel McAdams movie Game Night. Very fun movie, all over the place.
I have not seen this one.
It's a fun one. It really is. We're Jason Bateman fans. He's just got that charisma.
Yeah.
You know, that really he came and he's always had it, but he was off the radar for a really long time. And then Arrested Development hit. And then from there, he just stayed Jason Bateman. Earlier this week, we watched a movie we hadn't even heard of. There was a movie that came out like a dozen years ago called The Change Up.
Okay.
It was a Jason Bateman, Ryan Reynolds movie where Jason Bateman's married to Leslie Mann and Ryan Reynolds is his best friend. And these two are like polar opposites. Jason is like the super dad, lawyer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Ryan Reynolds is the best friend who's single, has a different girl every night. And they go out one night and they get drunk and they're peeing and it basically turns into Big, only with like, you know, like life switching, you know.
Okay.
They're both peeing in this fountain, and then they both say at this, they're like, Jason Bateman's talking about how much, you know, how much he wishes his life was like Ryan's, because of course I'm married and I have kids and a job and it all weighs me down. Of course, Ryan Reynolds is like, "What are you kidding? You know, you've got everything." So they do the whole "I wish I had your life," and then lightning strikes.
Doodle-doo.
Yeah, and they wake up the next day and they're in each other's bodies. So it's like Big meets Face Off in a way. But it was directed by the guy who did Wedding Crashers.
Okay.
It was fine. We watched the unrated version. And it was a lot of fun. But I mean, was it a good movie? No, but it was Jason Bateman being Jason Bateman.
Sure.
But then at the same time, then it was Ryan Reynolds being Jason Bateman. And Jason Bateman being Ryan Reynolds, which was also fun because, you know, those two were just very charismatic.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know, my wife saw it somewhere on Facebook or something, and she's like, "We should watch this." So we did, and it was fine. Like,
sure.
It was
fun enough.
It just it falls into that like just raunchy enough to be funny kind of thing, and that's kind of where Game Night fits. It's a lot of fun. I wouldn't call it real raunchy, but just fun.
Sure.
And so that's what we're watching for next week. And the second pick of Wives' Choice Part 2, Wives' Choice 23. We'll be watching Game Night.
You know, I am excited about that, Oz.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good movie. I'm excited to watch it with her. I do. I really like, you know, the contributions from others. Like I last year I really liked Wives' Choice. Really enjoyed it so far this month. This year as well. It's just fun. Kind of takes the pressure off of us. Plus, it's like I've gushed about before. I love watching movies with my wife, and so when we get to, you know, we watch so many for the shows, you know, for the podcast, that when we get an opportunity to like merge the two together, let her pick a movie for the podcast. It works out. So, but yeah, then next month she'll be out for
Patreon subscriber Melissa L will probably not be present with me for that one.
Oh man, that's gonna be a fun one though.
It will.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Same. It's probably been about 15 years since I watched that.
Oh, I love that movie. But yeah, so that's it for Say Anything. Social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit like and subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications and blah, 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 blah. Whatever. And so, yeah, we'll be back next week for week 3 of covering, I don't even know what year Game Night was made, but it's somewhere in the
I want to say 2018, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in the 20 teens, somewhere in that zone. But it's a lot of fun. I think you'll like it. Like I said, it's not going to be the funniest movie you've ever seen, but it's a good time. Like,
sure.
And so, anytime you can have a good time watching a movie, it is worth it. So that's it for another week of Let's Talk About Flicks. I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you next week with Game Night.